So this is lecture 3 in the series of lectures on plant transformation strategies. This is the usual disclaimer that it is meant for you and it should not be used for any other purpose, copied or posted on any site without the permission of author, that is me. And some of the pictures in this presentation may have been taken from public domain websites or popular books to make the presentation easy to understand. So the credit for such pictures remain with the original publisher. Okay, so as I said earlier, that we'll be starting with what is meant by this marker gene. So a selectable marker gene, they are vital to the plant transformation process. Marker gene enable the transformed cells to survive on a medium containing the selective agent, while non-transformed cells and tissues will die. So in this particular way, they will help you distinguish between those plant cells which have received the gene of your interest from those which have not. Plant cells which have received the gene of your interest are called as transformed cells, and those which could not, they are called as non-transformed cells. So after the process of transformation, a selection has to be made and transformed cells have to be distinguished from the non-transformed cells, and in this particular process, selectable marker gene, it plays a very vital role. So what are those selectable marker genes very commonly used? Antibiotics resistance conferring genes, those genes which confer resistance to antibiotics, which are very commonly used for bacteria selection as well as for plant selection. So for example, genes conferring resistance to kanamycin, or gene conferring resistance to hygromycin, or conferring resistance to herbicide, for example phosphenothricin, it is abbreviated as PPT. They are very commonly used. So these are some of the agents which can be used as a selective agent, and therefore you have to incorporate a gene which will confer resistance to that particular selective agent, and this will help in making a distinction between the transformed cells from those with the non-transformed cells. Now, for the sake of what you can say academics, selectable marker genes can be divided into several categories depending on whether they confer positive or negative selection, or whether selection is conditional or non-conditional. So let me explain you what is meant by this. So a conditional positive selection system, it consists of a gene which usually codes for a protein, usually an enzyme. So this enzyme, converts a substrate into a product. That substrate otherwise is maybe toxic to the cell. So those cells which have got this gene and those cells which can synthesize this particular enzyme, this enzyme will convert that substrate into product which is non-toxic, and therefore these cells will survive. And those cells which have not got this particular gene will not be able to synthesize this particular protein or enzyme, and therefore will not be able to convert that toxic substrate into a product, and therefore those non-transformed cells will die, and that is how a selection is made. So the point is here, you are using an exogenously added substrate. So this is what is called as conditional positive selection. Vis-a-vis a non-conditional positive selection where you don't add a substrate, right? You don't add an additional substrate after the transformation process. So this is basically the difference between the two. Now this table gives you some of the very commonly used selective agents. For example, as I said, hygromycin is one. Selective agent is hygromycin. Okay, what does it do? The gene for this is HPT. This gene codes for an enzyme, hygromycin phosphotransferase, and this enzyme, will be able to hydrolyze, will be able to utilize this hygromycin. And as a result of that, cells which receive this particular gene because they will synthesize this particular enzyme, will be able to survive in a medium which contains hygromycin. Okay, and mode of action of this particular antibiotic is given in this last column. The second gene is NPT2. It codes for, second gene is NPT2. What does it do? It codes for an enzyme called neomycin phosphotransferase 2. And what does it do? It confers resistance to an antibiotic called kanamycin. So when you incorporate this gene and transform the plant cell, and those cells which receive this particular gene will synthesize this neomycin phosphotransferase 2. Okay, and as a result of that, they will be able to survive in a medium which contains kanamycin. Those cells which do not get this particular gene will not be able to survive in the medium containing kanamycin. And the mode of action of this gene is also given. Then you have phosphinothricine called PPT also. So it codes for an enzyme phosphinothricine acetyltransferase, and it will confer resistance against phosphinothricine, right? And this is the mode of action. Then you have EPSPS. This gene codes for an enzyme called 5-enol pyruvate shikimate 3-phosphate synthase. This is the name of the enzyme. It is an enzyme which is involved, which plays an important role in branched chain amino acid synthesis. So it confers resistance against glyphosate. This is a herbicide, right? Then you have, for example, CAH gene, which codes for an enzyme called cyanamide hydratase, and it will provide resistance against cyanamide. Then you have GOX, glyphosate oxidoreductase gene, which codes for glyphosate oxidoreductase, which will confer resistance against glyphosate. You have MAN-A, it is also called as PMI gene. It is also very commonly used, PMI, which codes for an enzyme called phosphomannose isomerase, which will confer resistance against D-mannose. And XYLA gene, which codes for an enzyme called xylose isomerase, which will confer resistance to, or which will use D-xylose as a substrate. This enzyme will use D-mannose as a substrate, right? So please understand, these two are being used as a substrate, whereas these are basically antibiotic. These three are herbicides. So these marker genes, they will confer resistance to antibiotic or herbicide, or they will be used. They will be coding for enzyme which will use a particular molecule as a substrate. For example, phosphomannose isomerase and xylose isomerase. Now, let us, after making a background for it, let us move towards how do we make a transgenic plant. So for this, what do you need? So what we require is a gene of our interest, or it is being called as your favorite gene. Okay, whatever gene you would like to transform the plant with. So that is being called as the gene of your interest or your favorite gene. Then this gene of your interest or your favorite gene needs to be cloned into an expression vector. So it has to be inserted into a suitable plasmid vector. And please remember that you need to ensure that not only this gene is getting transferred to the plant cell, but it should be able to express there. It should be transcribed, and for this you need a strong promoter. So you are putting it in an expression vector, making sure that the gene of interest, when it gets into the plant cell, it gets suitably expressed. Then the actual transformation process, and then as we just discussed, selection of the transformants. So from a group of cells which have been transformed, you need to select those which have actually been transformed, means those which have actually received the gene of your interest, from those which have not received the gene of your interest. So this is what is called a selection of transformants, and it is here that your selection, your marker gene will play a vital role. And then once you have selected the transformant, then you go for regeneration of the transformed cells or transformed tissue, growing a new plant from the transformed cells. So here you will use the plant tissue culture technique. So once you have a group of cells, tissues, which have actually received the gene of your interest, then using the tissue culture technique, you will grow them into a complete plant. And then finally, once you have a plant, the last thing is you really need to check for the transgene expression. So there are different methods by which you ensure that the gene has actually gone into the plant cell and it is getting properly expressed as well. Right? So these are the major steps in plant transformation. Now, for a plasmid vector, what are the desirable features? So obviously one would like that plasmid vector you are using for cloning the gene of your interest is of small size, so that you can handle it easily and they are less liable to damage by shearing. So a big plasmid like TI plasmid is very difficult to handle. So usually an ideal expression vector would be the one which is smaller in size, so that it can be handled easily, and you need to use suitable promoter cells. So we'll come to that. Second is it should have multiple sites for restriction enzymes. So usually how do you do cloning? So you cut the plasmid by a restriction enzyme and then you put the gene of your interest and then you ligate it. Okay, so you have to have multiple restriction enzyme digestion sites, and in the genetically engineered plasmid, what is being done is that all those restriction enzyme digestion sites, they are put close to each other, and that particular site where you have multiple restriction enzyme sites, it is called as multiple cloning site. They are clubbed, they lie next to each other. Okay, so that particular region is called as multiple cloning site, MCS, and then it should be able to confer a selectable phenotype on the host cell so that they can be easily selected. Okay, so it has to carry a marker gene so that it will confer a selectable phenotype. You will be able to easily distinguish between those plant cells which have received the gene of your interest from those which have not. Okay, so your plasmid should carry all these. So basically there are two types of transformation vectors which are being used in plant transformation. One is what is called as co-integrative vectors. The sequence is the gene of your interest. The sequence to be transferred to the plant reside on the same plasmid as that of the Vir genes. So there is only one plasmid, okay, and you have both the gene of your interest, the marker gene, as well as the Vir genes, all of them residing on the single plasmid, and this is called as co-integrative strategy or co-integrative plasmid. Vis-a-vis, there is another strategy which is more popular. It is called as binary vector system. The gene of our interest and the Vir genes, which are actually required for transferring that gene into the plant cell, these two are located on two different plasmids. So binary means there are two plasmid, right? There are two plasmid. One carries the gene of your interest and the other one carries the Vir genes. So this is called as binary vector system, and this is called as co-integrative strategy, co-integrative mechanism, wherein the gene of your interest, the marker gene, as well as the Vir genes, all of them are there located on the same plasmid. Okay, let us first see this co-integrative strategy. So the gene of our interest is cloned in an intermediate shuttle vector. It is, you can simply remember that it is cloned in a vector, in a plasmid vector. A standard E. coli plasmid is, for example, PBR322, containing bacterial and plant selectable markers. Okay, so it should, this particular plasmid PBR322 is a very popular plasmid. When I worked using agrobacterium mediated plant transformation, so this was a very popular plasmid at that time, PBR322, P blue script, PBR322. So this was a very popular plasmid. So we would put the gene of our interest into this particular plasmid and making sure that this plasmid carries two selectable marker genes, one for selecting the bacteria and the second one for selecting the transformed plant cells, right? And then it is introduced into Agrobacterium tumefaciens by bacterial transformation process. So it's a very simple process where you provide a heat shock to the bacteria, and then this particular plasmid, this PBR322 containing the gene of your interest, will get into the agrobacterium. So this agrobacterium contains an intact TI plasmid, right? So you have your shuttle plasmid. This plasmid carries the gene of your interest here. Okay, it has got multiple cloning sites. So using one of the restriction enzymes, you have introduced the gene of your interest, and beside the gene of your interest, it carries a bacteria selection marker as well as a plant selectable marker. And now what you are doing, you are mobilizing this plasmid into the Agrobacterium tumefaciens. So this is Agrobacterium tumefaciens, and this Agrobacterium tumefaciens, it carries TI plasmid. TI plasmid carries the Vir genes. So there are Vir genes here. And then once it has been mobilized into the Agrobacterium tumefaciens, it undergoes recombination. Recombination takes place between homologous tDNA regions. And this particular plasmid, that intermediate shuttle vector, this PBR322, will get incorporated into the TI plasmid. So it will become a single plasmid. Co-integration strategy. The two plasmid will integrate, making just one plasmid. So what does it mean? It means that you have the gene of interest, you have the plant selectable marker, as well as the Vir genes, all of them located on the single plasmid. This is called as co-integrative strategy. And then you have binary vector system, which is more popular. So as I said, as I had written over here, that it is a standard method for tDNA transfer. So what do? It takes advantage of the fact that Vir gene products are transacting. So we have studied this transacting and cisacting. So Vir genes are transacting, means they act by coding for a diffusible product. And what is the diffusible product? It is usually protein. Okay, so Vir gene products are transacting. This is the advantage. So you can have Vir genes on a different plasmid also. It is not necessary that Vir gene should be physically close to the gene of your interest, because they are transacting, they act by coding for a diffusible product, that is protein. So you have your gene of interest. This is the gene of my interest. Okay, this entire thing. Then you have this selectable marker. This is the selectable marker. This is the gene of interest on a plasmid. This is the left border and this is the right border. Left border and right border. And then in addition, you have genes which will confer resistance against a particular antibiotic, so that you call it as a bacteria selectable marker, and then origin of replication. Okay, so this is one plasmid, and then you have Vir genes located on a different plasmid. So this helper Vir helper plasmid, it doesn't have the tDNA, it doesn't have any other thing, it except for those group of genes called Vir genes. So Vir genes are being carried on a different plasmid, and the gene of your interest, plant selectable marker, bacteria selectable markers are carried on a different plasmid. So you have two different plasmids, and therefore it is called as binary vector system. This vector carries 25 base pair borders of tDNA necessary for excision and integration. So it carries the left border and the right border here, and in between the left border and right border you have the gene of your interest as well as the plant selectable marker here. The phytohormone genes, so you remember in tDNA you had genes for cytokinin synthesis, you had genes for auxin synthesis. So those genes have been deleted, those genes have been removed, and in place of those genes you have incorporated the gene of your interest, and therefore you say that this is an engineered strain. So phytohormone genes are substituted by gene of interest, and Vir genes, they are provided on a separate plasmid known as Vir helper plasmid. So this Vir helper plasmid, doesn't contain any other thing. It contains only the gene of only the Vir genes. So these are the steps. tDNA is moved into the moved onto a separate small plasmid between the right border and left border. The plant hormone synthesizing genes, they are substituted by the gene of your interest. The plant selectable marker, either NPT2 or hygromycin, NPT2 for kinnamycin resistance is incorporated. Vir genes are retained on a separate plasmid, and then these two plasmid containing agrobacterium co-transform agrobacterium with both plasmids. Means what will you do? You will have a mixture of these two plasmids, and you will transform these agrobacteria which do not contain any plasmid, so that the agrobacterium will contain both the plasmids. So you will be selecting the agrobacterium again. Selecting the agrobacterium means those agrobacteria which have received both of these plasmids from those which have not received. So this is called as bacteria selection. Okay, so that antibiotic resistance genes conferring resistance against a particular antibiotic in bacteria, that will be utilized over here. So if you remember, let me just so this is the gene. This gene this gene will be utilized for selecting those agrobacteria from those which have not received this plasmid. So those agrobacteria which have not received this plasmid, they will die in a medium which contains a particular antibiotic. Okay, as against those agrobacteria which have received these two plasmids, they will survive because they carry a gene which will confer resistance to that particular antibiotic. Okay, so this is called as bacteria selection. So co-transform agrobacterium with both the plasmid and then select the bacteria, and then infect the plant with the transformed bacteria. Okay, so after selection means you have separated those bacterial cells which have got these two plasmid from those which have not. Then using those agrobacteria which contain two plasmid, okay, you will be transforming the plant cell. So these are the steps. Okay, so this is how your gene of interest would look like. This is called as a cassette. So you have the actual gene coding sequence, the one which will code for a protein of your interest. Then in addition you have a promoter. So you require a strong promoter so that this particular gene gets expressed. Okay, so you need to have a suitable promoter here, and in addition to this you require a transcription termination signal. So these arrows mark the direction. So RNA polymerase will bind and will transcribe in this direction, right? Then you have plant selectable marker gene. So you have this NPT2, neomycin phosphotransferase gene here, the one in blue, and then it has got its own promoter also. Okay, and it will be transcribing in this direction, in the direction of the arrow. This is the left border, this is the right border, right? And then you have genes for bacteria selection, right? So this is how this plasmid will be constructed. This is called as cassette, and this is the all important part in plant transformation. This particular cassette, the one which is workable, becomes a secret, and it is traded. So one commercial company having a good cassette is a trade secret of that particular company, right? And then this is the actual transformation process. So this is the plant that you would like to transform. So what do? You generate, you punch the leaf and you create these kinds of leaf discs. How can you punch this kind of, how can you punch the leaf? Using your simple punching machine. Okay, what you are doing basically, you are inflicting wound. Okay, the cut surface will secrete the phenolic compound. Okay, and those phenolic compound, including acetylcysteine, will attract the bacteria. So this is called as leaf disc method. Okay, so you will be punching the plant leaf you would like to transform, and the cut surface, they will secrete the phenolic compound, and then you will put them in a Petri plate like this, and this Petri plate contains the agrobacteria, the selected agrobacteria containing those two plasmids, one carrying the gene of your interest and other one carrying the Weir helper plasmid, other one Weir helper plasmid carrying the Weir genes. So please remember, it doesn't really make difference Weir genes are located in one plasmid or Weir genes are located on a different molecule, different plasmid, because Weir genes are transacting. Okay, they act by coding for a diffusible product, that is protein. So it really helps. So what is the advantage? Advantage is that once compared to the co-integrative plasmid, that because in co-integrative plasmid, you have the gene of your interest, the plant selectable marker, the bacteria selectable marker, as well as the Weir genes all in one plasmid. So there are size limitations. Whereas in having a binary vector system, those size limitations, they go to a large extent. That means your gene of interest can be a bigger DNA molecule also, bigger DNA strand also, and you will be able to transform. So once you have co-cultivated with agrobacteria, what do you do? Next step is selection. So what do you do? For example, you have incorporated NPT2, the gene which confers resistance to kanamycin. So what do? You grow the leaf discs in a medium which contains kanamycin. So only those plant tissues which have got the gene, they will survive, means they will remain green. Those which have not received the plasmid, and therefore they have not received the gene NPT2, and they will not be able to hydrolyze kanamycin, so therefore they will die, the white. So this is called as plant selection. So what you have done, you have made a selection of plant cells. You have selected those which have received the gene of your interest, probably because they have received the NPT2, and you have seen in the cassette the NPT2 and gene of your interest, they were lying close to each other. So in all probability, when NPT2 has gone in, the gene of your interest also must have gone in. From those which have not received, so they will die. The white, these whites, these are the plant tissues which are not received. That means they are non-transformed. So what do? You select the transformed plant tissues, and then using tissue culture, what do? You will use medium containing different proportions of auxin and cytokinin. You will induce collagenesis, then you will induce rhizogenesis, and slowly over a period of time, these plants, they will grow into a full plantlet, and then you will go for two types of tests. One is called as biochemical test. Biochemical test means you have already done it. You have grown those plant tissues in presence of that selectable marker. In this particular case, kanamycin, and they have survived. So this is a fairly good idea. This gives a fairly good idea that these plant tissues must have carried the gene of interest. They are actually the ones which have been transformed. So this is called as a biochemical test, but this is not considered as a confirmatory test. The second test is called as molecular test. What do? You go for what is called as Southern blotting. So you isolate the DNA from these plants, okay? Then you digest them with one or maybe more than one restriction enzyme into smaller fragments. You run a gel, you get a smear, and then you hybridize this particular gel with a probe which is complementary to the gene of your interest. Okay, and you see a very strong signal. If you are using a radioactive molecule, radioactive compound, then you would see a very strong signal on the X-ray film. So in nutshell, there are two tests. One is a biochemical test and the second one is called as the Southern blotting, the molecular test.